Alright, hello ladies and gentlemen. This is me giving a couple of quick thoughts that I have about the current crypto state. Basically, this is me flexing on how early I am, how early we are. If you're watching this, Bitcoin is incredibly young. Bitcoin is still underpriced enormously, in my opinion. Bitcoin is still very cheap, below 20,000 right now, and crypto is still the fastest growing asset and the fastest growing economy that we've ever seen in history. Comparatively, we had the internet with 63%, something around this, and we have internet with over 100% growth, even now, even though we're in a bear market. So this tells me we're onto something if we go for this. If we think about things like Amazon, Google, or Facebook, we've seen those companies growing up, and we've seen them taking the .com bubble, going with them, and all of them, they had huge corrections of more than 85%, and yet there was never a bad time to invest into Amazon, Google, or Facebook. So if you pick the obvious winners, the big players in the game, which would be Bitcoin or Ethereum in our example for the crypto, then you're probably gonna be really well off. The question for many people is, why do you have to invest anyways? And so I wanna give a quick look out on how Fiat works, or what Fiat is exactly. Fiat, it's a Latin word, and then finally my Latin studies, they start to pay off. It basically means let it be done. This T marks the third person. And so it is an issued command from somebody else. It is issued from the state or from other parties, and it's basically in their control. So this is not limited, and there's therefore no real value. Because if you have something of real value, for example like gold, then you can't create it unlimitedly. This is what gives gold the value. And we've moved from the gold standard 1971, and since then fiat money basically lost all its real value, and it's a concept that we hold on to, but a concept that is losing on value rapidly. If you look, for example, on the amount of money that has been printed or brought into circulation, this has increased by, I can't even read those numbers, it's incredibly high. If you look at the percentage, for example, we know that the money supply growth in the United States often climbed above 35%. And this is just amazing to me to see. It's completely out of control if you ask me. There are not many things that grow at this rate. For example, if we can get the numbers here for inflation, for example, that comes with it. It's just incredibly high numbers. You should aim for around like a 2% inflation. That keeps the market healthy, keeps people like spending money because they're motivated to do so and not to hold it. Since the small inflation, it's healthy for the market, but we're completely off the chart, way above. If we look, for example, on houses, many sites, they cite like 15%. I've seen numbers with 30 or 40% even, where single houses actually catch up with the money supply that is printed, but even they lag behind. And for example, if you look at the gold standard, like gold lost money. Like if you bought gold 10 years ago, you basically lost some of your money. I can highly recommend this, by the way. Pomp, he's a great guy. You can watch his content as well. He's far more informed than I am and has a further reach, so it's really helpful. And what he does every week, he gives an outlook where we are exactly, and shows us the Bitcoin and traditional assets return of investments against the US dollar, which is really helpful to see it. For example, right now we see that Bitcoin is down 54% if you bought it exactly 1 year ago, and we see gold is down as well, the S&P. But then if you look further down the lines under the years, you can see that even if you hold it for 2 years, you're still immensely in profit compared to all of the other parties. I think S&P 500 is an extremely safe bet. I think if there would be no crypto market, I would probably go there and just make it a chunk of my investment portfolio if possible, because you have like a guaranteed, almost guaranteed return of investment, but it just looks pale compared to the Bitcoin performance. If we look at Bitcoin, every single chart that I can find right now points towards us being low to a bottom or near it, and looking towards a return in the cycle. For example, I really love the Bitcoin rainbow price chart, because we can see the different shades. Basically, we have a logarithmic chart put over Bitcoin, and we can see a general direction. And I just really like to see this again. Down here you have the different colors that show you basically where you are. The red color mean that you're in the maximum bubble territory, and the blue colors mean that you're on the complete fire sale, where it's like unreasonably underpriced. And this is where we are right now. We're on 20,000. I think the price right now is even a little bit below it. So this is an immensely great time to invest in Bitcoin, in my opinion. And then if we look back even to other things, to the Fear and Greed Index, which generally shows when people are extremely fearful, then you should buy. When people are extremely hyped, then you should sell. In the case of Bitcoin, it's difficult to sell, in my opinion, because if you have a 10-year outlook, it doesn't really matter where you sold. For example, if you go back here, you would have sold for 13,000, but then like a couple years later, if you just leave it, you're still gonna make a ton of money. So the purchasing power simply increases if you hold it and if you keep steady. And then even very simple tools, they just show you a general direction. Here you have the investor tool, 2-year multiplier, 2-year moving average multiplier, and you can see whenever it drops below the green line, it's usually a very, very nice time to invest in. And I'm gonna, whenever I make a video, I'm basically gonna state that Bitcoin is still underpriced, and I'm still going over the same charts because they're very, very simple and they have a huge time frame to look over to. Many people tell me that Bitcoin is risky. This is the one approach I have most of the time. When I tell people to get into Bitcoin and even to get a little bit exposure, like 1%, 10%, whatever they can afford to lose, they tell me, well, Bitcoin is so risky. And in my opinion, Bitcoin was really, really risky in the first 10 years. Like, we didn't know if it works. We didn't know if there would be an attack or if the Satoshi sold his coins or whatever. But none of those things happened. And Bitcoin shows to be a resilient system of digital gold. And so right now, I think that it is actually more risky not to buy Bitcoin. Altcoins for me, they are a leveraged gamble on the crypto market, which is great because the crypto market in general increases. But there is one huge risk, because you have the risk of potential failure of individuals. Like you have leaders like Cardano and Ethereum. They are all securities, and those leaders, they can make bad decisions and therefore throw out the cryptocurrency. And with Bitcoin, you just don't have this problem at all. You know the policy that's running Bitcoin, it's gonna run it for the next 1,000 years. There's not gonna be a change. But with many altcoins, it's even difficult to say what exactly they are, because they're constantly evolving. I think this is one of my problems with Ethereum, especially. The merge just happened and it looks fine. But the problem with Ethereum is it's hard to exactly put your finger on it, what exactly it is, and what, for example, the supply will be, how long you can use the staking pools, when you can actually withdraw your coins again. So for me, it seems like they will probably outperform Bitcoin, which is a bet that I'm taking as well. But my main goal is going to be to increase my purchasing power and then put it back into Bitcoin for the long run. My approach here is to pick those that are actually bringing value to the community, those that actually build something, that have users that are constantly running and updating things and actually work, and those that will last for the next 10 years. Like, as far as we can look, we should look for those that have the value and that last for a couple of years. This chart was very interesting to me. It shows the reason you could have had to sell the S&P 500, and then you can go over all the different things that are happening, like gold price outperforms things, and you have all those wars that are going on, and crisis and everything. But if you just hold it, and if you just wait and ignore all the buzz, then basically you get a nice, really nice return. That's gonna increase your purchasing power, and in the end, how comfortable you're gonna go through life, in my opinion. For me especially, this is a great opportunity, or it's a good starting point to work on, because I'm still very young. I'm 23 years old and I don't know nothing, but I know if I hold things, it generally works better than holding the dollar. So my goal is to look forward into the future, start really young, and then my mistakes that I'm gonna do, they can be cured basically by the time that I can offer for this deal. So you can go really safe, you can go risky, whatever. If you bring the time, all the spectrums basically work up to the right, if it's not like some shitcoin that you have and that you're gambling on. So when should you buy is always the question, like, oh, is it a nice time now? Will it go down 50% again? Of course it can go down. It can always go down. It can always go up. The trend is towards the top of and to the right. So in my opinion, you should buy all the time. You should buy constantly every month if you can afford it. And then, especially if the annual return of your good investment is negative, like we see in the S&P 500, for example, on this chart, if you go back to it, then we can see that the years, of course, where you're going down and you're gonna feel them, like you're gonna feel a sense of panic if you're losing some of your money. But those years are actually the best years for dollar cost averaging and increasing the amount of fiat that you can put into your asset. To get a conclusion, in my opinion, it's the best bet to buy hard assets and to get a long time horizon. And this means for me not like 5 months, not even a year, not even 3 years. I think if you look forwards to 5 or maybe 10 years, then your bet is pretty decent. If you get something on that value, then whatever you buy, as long as it's a great asset and it's not going down based on individuals, the value should increase decently and you have a nice portfolio to set up in the future. Time in the market, this is a nice catchphrase, time in the market is better than timing the market, and we've seen it over and over again. In the S&P 500, for example, you have an average return of 10 between 15%, but if you miss the top 10 days on the S&P 500, you lose half the value, and then basically you're still stuck with only almost carrying out what inflation gives you, so you're like holding your value still, but if you miss those crucial days, which are important for the value that's increasing, and you don't know where exactly they're coming, then your investment will be only half as good as it could be. If you're lucky and privileged enough, you should, and so that you have monthly cash inflow, you should use that cash flow at least to some percent, maybe 10, 20%, as much as you're comfortable, to get into hard assets and flee from the dollar. I think it's important to disconnect yourself from the emotions and just buy what's going to increase in value and not what's decreasing. Decreasing, is that a word? In value. So you want to build up your portfolio that actually sustains time instead of getting fiat or weird things like that. And the last tip is just to wait and get old. I think this is the trick. If you look at Warren Buffett, if you give Warren Buffett 10 years to get as rich as he is, he won't be able to do it. But if you give him 60 years, you have a good run. And I think if you constantly invest in the market, I don't see an option where I'm 70 and where I'm still poor, just based on how inflation is going to increase the price of markets. I totally think this is the secret to financial wealth. Of course, I'm young. How can I say it's gonna be the way, and how can I say that this is going to work like it? This is just a bet at taking, and I don't know of any better bet. So if you have better suggestions, of course we can go for it. I know many people who try to save their money to wealth, but many times I think it's even easier to increase your monthly cash flow for 20% than to save 20% of your current money that you have. And for me, I'm a student right now, so I'm not really getting that much money, and I can't really afford to increase my monthly cash flow that much. So the only bet I have is to invest the money that I already have and try to go with that. Alright, I hope this was informative and helpful, and thank you for your time. Good luck.